A captured mother in a hostile camp risks everything to keep her baby alive. But when the Comanche chief discovers her, what happens next is something no one could have imagined. Thank you so much for watching and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you liked the story, and where you're watching from and why you're following this. The scorching summer sun beat down mercilessly on the Texas plains, as Sarah Miller sat huddled in the corner of the Comanche camp, her blouse torn, and her face streaked with dust and dried tears. It had been 3 weeks since the raid on their homestead, 3 weeks since she had watched her husband Thomas fall under a Comanche warrior's lance, 3 weeks of being dragged across the wilderness with her 6-month-old son Jacob clutched desperately to her chest. The camp bustled with activity around her. Women tanned hides and prepared food, while children darted between teepees playing games with carefree abandon. Sarah kept her eyes downcast, having learned that making eye contact often invited unwanted attention. Her captors had largely ignored her since bringing her to the camp, providing minimal food and water, just enough to keep her and Jacob alive. Jacob began to whimper softly against her chest, his tiny face reddening as his cries grew more insistent. Sarah glanced nervously around the camp. She knew he was hungry, but she dreaded feeding him in the open. With trembling hands, she loosened her tattered blouse and positioned Jacob to nurse, trying to remain as inconspicuous as possible. "Hush now, my sweet boy," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "We must be quiet. Mama's here." Her fingers gently stroked his downy head as he suckled, his cries immediately ceasing. For a brief moment, Sarah closed her eyes, transported back to the peaceful rocking chair on the porch of their homestead, the scent of Thomas's tobacco pipe wafting through the evening air. The abrupt shadow falling across her snapped Sarah back to her grim reality. Standing before her was Chief Nakoa, his imposing figure blocking out the sun. Known as the Bear among his people, the chief's face was lined with the wisdom and hardship of his 50 summers. His dark eyes, usually stern and unyielding, now rested on the nursing child. Sarah's heart hammered in her chest as she instinctively curled around Jacob, certain that they were about to face some new cruelty. The chief had been absent when she was brought to camp, returning only yesterday from a hunting expedition. This was their first encounter. "Please," she whispered, though she knew he likely didn't understand her words. "Please don't hurt my baby." Chief Nakoa stood motionless, his expression unreadable as he watched the white woman feeding her child. Something flickered in his eyes, recognition perhaps, or memory. Without a word, he turned and barked orders at a young woman nearby. The girl, no more than 16, quickly approached with a water skin and a small bundle wrapped in hide. To Sarah's astonishment, the chief gestured for the girl to give these items to her. When Sarah hesitated, he spoke in broken English. "Child needs strength. Mother needs strength." The bundle contained dried meat and berries, a feast compared to the scraps she'd been surviving on. Sarah looked up at him in disbelief. "Why?" she managed to ask. The chief's weathered face remained impassive, but his voice carried a depth of emotion that transcended their language barrier. "I too had wife, had son." He pointed to the horizon. "White soldiers come, no mercy." He touched his chest. "Nakoa knows heart pain of parent." With that, he walked away, leaving Sarah stunned. The young woman who had brought the provisions lingered, her curious eyes on Jacob. "I am Kimmy," she said in hesitant English. "I help you." That night, for the first time since her capture, Sarah slept with a full stomach and a flickering, fragile hope. As Jacob nestled against her, his breathing soft and regular, she wondered what tomorrow would bring in this strange, hostile world, where an act of compassion had come from the most unexpected source. Outside her teepee, beneath the vast canopy of stars, Chief Nakoa sat alone by the dying embers of the central fire, his mind filled with memories of his own wife and son, lost to smallpox brought by white traders 7 winters ago. The sight of the white woman nursing her child had awakened something he thought had died with them: compassion, and the recognition of a bond that transcended the bitter enmity between their peoples. In the mother's desperate protection of her child, he had seen a reflection of his own loss. Morning came with the soft glow of dawn spreading across the eastern sky. Sarah awoke to find a deerskin dress placed at the entrance to her teepee, a gift from Kimmy, who had taken it upon herself to look after the white woman and her baby. The young Comanche woman helped Sarah dress and showed her how to secure Jacob to her back in the traditional way, using a cradle board that kept him safe and allowed Sarah the use of her hands. "Chief says you work," Kimmy explained as she guided Sarah toward a group of women preparing hides. "Work good. Keeps mind from sadness." As the days passed, Sarah's blistered hands learned the rhythm of Comanche daily life. She scraped hides until her fingers bled, gathered firewood, and helped prepare meals under the watchful eye of the tribal women. Some regarded her with open hostility, others with indifference, but a few, like Kimmy, offered small kindnesses that made her captivity more bearable. And always from a distance she felt the chief's gaze following her and Jacob, as though they were a puzzle he couldn't quite solve, or a wound that wouldn't quite heal. 2 months into her captivity, the summer heat began to wane as autumn painted the plains with golden hues. Sarah's skin had darkened under the relentless sun, and her once soft hands had grown calloused from daily labor. Jacob, thriving despite their circumstances, had begun to babble and reach for objects with curious fingers. The women of the tribe, initially distant, had gradually warmed to the chubby-cheeked infant who smiled indiscriminately at anyone who approached him. On this particular morning, Sarah sat with a group of women near the stream that ran alongside the camp, washing hides and listening to their melodic language without understanding. Jacob played nearby on a blanket, giggling as Kimmy dangled a rabbit foot charm above him. "He grows strong," Kimmy remarked in her improving English. "Like Comanche baby." Sarah smiled faintly. "He's all I have left," she replied, her hands continuing their rhythmic scrubbing. "Sometimes I think he's the only reason I'm still alive." Kimmy tilted her head curiously. "You think of running?" The question startled Sarah. She glanced nervously around, but the other women were engrossed in their own work and conversations. I don't know where I'd go," Sarah admitted softly. "The homestead is gone. My husband is gone. And we're deep in Comanche territory now." She paused, considering the miles of harsh terrain that separated them from the nearest white settlement. "Jacob and I wouldn't survive alone." Kimmy nodded, satisfied with the answer. "Good. Some try. Die in sun or worse." Her expression grew serious. "Chief Nakoa has protected you. Others wanted to sell you to Mexican traders. Or worse." This revelation sent a chill down Sarah's spine despite the warm day. She had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed made her realize how precarious their situation truly was. Chief Nakoa's unexpected compassion had spared them from fates she dared not contemplate. Their conversation was interrupted by shouts from the camp. The women quickly gathered their things, expressions tense. Kimmy grabbed Jacob and thrust him into Sarah's arms. "Riders coming," she explained hurriedly. "Go to your teepee. Stay quiet." Heart pounding, Sarah clutched Jacob and hurried back to camp, keeping her head down as warriors mounted their horses and women secured children and valuables. From the entrance of her small teepee, she watched as a group of about 20 riders approached, their painted faces and adorned horses marking them as warriors from another tribe. Chief Nakoa stood tall at the center of the camp, flanked by his most trusted warriors, his face an impassive mask as he raised a hand in greeting to the newcomers. The leader of the visiting party, a younger man with a scar running down the left side of his face, dismounted and approached Nakoa. Though Sarah couldn't understand their words, the tension in the air was palpable. The visitor's gaze repeatedly swept the camp, eventually settling on Sarah's teepee. With a jolt of fear, she retreated further inside, pressing Jacob's face against her shoulder to keep him quiet. Hours passed as the two groups engaged in what appeared to be negotiations. From snippets of translated conversation that Kimmy whispered to her later that evening, Sarah learned that the visitors were Kiowa warriors, seeking allies for a raid against white settlers who had encroached on their hunting grounds. They had also expressed interest in trading for the white woman and her child, offering horses and weapons in exchange. "What did the chief say?" Sarah asked, her voice tight with fear. Kimmy's expression was solemn. "He said you belong to the people now, not for trade." That night, unable to sleep, Sarah sat at the entrance of her teepee, watching the visitors' campfires flickering at the edge of the Comanche camp. Jacob slept peacefully beside her, unaware of the danger that had so nearly claimed them. In the shadows beyond the central fire, she could make out Chief Nakoa's silhouette as he sat in council with his warriors, his deep voice occasionally carrying on the night breeze. The next morning, Sarah emerged from her teepee to find the visitors preparing to depart. The scarred Kiowa leader mounted his horse, his dark eyes finding her across the camp. The intensity of his gaze made her shudder. There was something predatory in it, something that promised this wasn't the end of his interest in the white captive and her son. As the Kiowa party rode away, Sarah felt Chief Nakoa's presence behind her. She turned to find him watching the departing riders with a grim expression. "They will return," he said simply. "Why did you refuse their offer?" Sarah asked, finding courage in the daylight that she lacked in darkness. "Why keep us here?" The chief's weathered face revealed nothing, but his eyes, when they met hers, held a complexity of emotion that took her breath away. "The boy," he said, nodding toward Jacob, who was now awake and watching the colorful departure of the Kiowa with wide eyes. "He reminds me of my son. Same spirit, same eyes that see everything." He paused, seeming to search for words in his limited English. "And you, strong mother, like my wife was, fight to keep child safe." It was the most he had ever spoken to her. Sarah stood silent, unsure how to respond to this glimpse into the chief's wounded heart. "Work now," he said, his voice returning to its usual gruff command. "Camp moves tomorrow. Winter comes soon. Need new hunting grounds." As he walked away, Sarah found herself watching his retreating figure with new understanding. In his own way, through the barriers of language and the bitter history between their peoples, Chief Nakoa was offering her and Jacob protection, perhaps even a place among the people. It was not freedom, not the life she had planned with Thomas on their homestead, but it was survival. And for Jacob's sake, survival had to be enough. That afternoon, as Sarah helped the women prepare for the next day's journey, packing belongings and dismantling teepees, Kimmy worked alongside her with unusual quietness. "What troubles you?" Sarah finally asked. Kimmy glanced around before responding in a low voice. "Those Kiowa warriors, bad men. Chief knows this. That is why we move camp earlier than planned, to be farther from their territory." Sarah's hand stilled on the hide she was folding. "Do you think they'll really come back for us?" Kimmy nodded grimly. "The one with the scar, he is called Tabe. He collects white captives to sell in Mexico, pays many gold coins for them there." She touched Sarah's arm with unexpected gentleness. "Stay close to camp, always." The warning cast a shadow over the already daunting prospect of moving deeper into Comanche territory, further from any hope of rescue or return to white civilization. Yet as Sarah looked across the busy camp toward Chief Nakoa, who was instructing young warriors on how to properly secure loads for the journey, she realized that her fear of the Kiowa now outweighed her fear of remaining with the Comanche. The world had become a place of impossible choices and shifting loyalties. But one thing remained constant: her determination to protect Jacob, to ensure his survival no matter the cost to herself. If that meant adapting to life among the Comanche, learning their ways, and accepting Chief Nakoa's strange, silent protection, then that was what she would do. That night, as the camp settled into an uneasy sleep before the journey ahead, Sarah whispered promises to Jacob under the vast Texas sky, each star a witness to her resolve. The Comanche camp had been established in their winter grounds for nearly 2 months, nestled in a protected valley where the trees offered some shelter from the biting north winds. December had brought freezing temperatures that made Sarah grateful for the warm buffalo robes Kimmy had helped her prepare, and the sturdy teepee she now called home. Jacob, now 10 months old, had taken his first tentative steps just days ago, toddling between Sarah and Kimmy with delighted squeals that drew smiles even from the most stoic warriors. Sarah had come to understand much of the Comanche language, though she still struggled with pronunciation. Her days fell into a rhythm of work and care, gathering firewood, preparing meals, tanning hides, and tending to Jacob. Some nights the tribe gathered around the central fire for storytelling, and though she remained at the periphery, Sarah found herself increasingly drawn to these tales of Comanche history and legend, translated in whispers by Kimmy. On this particular evening, snow fell in gentle flakes, dusting the teepees and ground with a soft white blanket. Chief Nakoa had returned from a hunting expedition with several of his warriors, bringing much-needed fresh meat to the camp. As was becoming custom, he stopped by Sarah's teepee, nodding in approval as he watched Jacob playing with a small wooden horse a tribal elder had carved for him. "He grows strong," the chief observed. the same words he spoke each time he visited. "Good Comanche legs now. Thank you for the meat," Sarah replied, having learned that expressions of gratitude were important in Comanche culture. "We are grateful for your providing." A ghost of a smile touched the chief's weathered face, a rare sight that transformed his stern features. Winter hard time, but people strong together. He lingered longer than usual, watching Jacob play. The boy, noticing the chief's attention, picked up his wooden horse and boldly approached, offering it to Nakoa with a babbled invitation to join his game. The chief's expression softened as he crouched down to the child's level, accepting the toy with ceremonial gravity. "He knows no fear," Nakoa remarked, moving the horse in circles to Jacob's delight. "Good for warrior." Sarah tensed slightly at these words. The idea of her son becoming a Comanche warrior both terrified and fascinated her. Would they truly raise him as one of their own? And what would that mean for his future? And hers? "Will we stay with the people always?" she asked, the question that had lingered unspoken between them for months. The chief's dark eyes met hers, inscrutable. "Where else would you go? White settlements grow, but they are still far. Dangerous journey for woman and child alone." He paused, seeming to consider his next words carefully. "Here, you are protected. Jacob learns the ways of the people." Before Sarah could respond, shouts from the camp's perimeter interrupted their conversation. Chief Nakoa was on his feet in an instant, his hand moving to the knife at his belt as he strode from the teepee. Sarah quickly gathered Jacob into her arms, her heart racing as the commotion outside grew louder. "Stay inside," Kimmy ordered, appearing suddenly at the teepee entrance, her face tight with fear. "Kiowa raiders. Many of them." Sarah clutched Jacob tighter, remembering the scarred face of Taabe and his predatory interest months ago. "Are they here for us?" Kimmy nodded grimly. "They come in peace talk but bring too many warriors. Chief suspect's trap." She pressed a small bone-handled knife into Sarah's palm. "Hide this. Use if you must." The weight of the blade felt both foreign and necessary in Sarah's hand. She tucked it into the folds of her dress, then gathered Jacob's few belongings and some food, preparing for whatever might come. Outside, she could hear Chief Nakoa's authoritative voice addressing the visitors, his tone firm but diplomatic. Hours passed in tense waiting. Jacob, sensing his mother's fear, remained unusually quiet, clinging to her as darkness fell. Sarah kept the fire in her teepee burning low, straining to hear the negotiations happening at the camp center. Occasionally, Kimi would slip in with updates. The Kiowa claimed to seek only trade and alliance, but their warriors outnumbered the Comanche men present in the camp, many of whom were still away on hunting expeditions. "Chief stalls for time," Kimi whispered on her third visit. "Hopes hunting party returns before Kiowa make move." Shortly after midnight, the tension finally broke. A single war cry shattered the pretense of peace, followed by the sounds of fighting erupting throughout the camp. Sarah doused her fire completely and retreated to the farthest corner of her teepee, singing softly to Jacob to mask the sounds of battle outside. Suddenly the teepee flap was thrust aside, and a silhouette appeared. Not Kimi or Chief Nakoa, but a Kiowa warrior, his face painted for war. Sarah reached for the knife Kimi had given her, but before she could grasp it, another figure burst in behind the intruder. In the dim light filtering through the teepee walls, Sarah recognized Chief Nakoa, blood streaming from a gash on his shoulder. The two men clashed in near silence, the deadly struggle confined to the small space of the teepee. Sarah curled protectively around Jacob, pressing his face against her shoulder to shield him from the violence. There was a grunt, a final desperate struggle, and then stillness as one body slumped to the ground. "Come," Chief Nakoa's voice commanded, and Sarah could have wept with relief. "No time, must leave now." Outside, the camp was in chaos. Several teepees burned, their flames casting macabre shadows across scenes of battle. Nakoa led Sarah to where two horses waited, already loaded with minimal supplies. "Where's Kimi?" Sarah asked desperately, looking around for the young woman who had become her closest friend. "Helping others escape," the chief replied tersely. "She joins us at meeting place. Now go." With practiced ease despite his injury, he lifted Sarah and Jacob onto one of the horses, then mounted the other. They rode hard into the darkness, away from the burning camp and the sounds of conflict. Jacob, strapped securely to Sarah's chest with a hide carrier, whimpered softly but did not cry out, as though he too understood the need for silence. They rode through the night, the freezing air burning Sarah's lungs and numbing her face. Chief Nakoa set a punishing pace, stopping only once to bind his wounded shoulder with strips torn from his shirt. Dawn was breaking when they finally reached a small cave tucked into a rocky hillside, the meeting place where scattered members of the tribe would regroup. Several women and children were already there, huddled around a small, smokeless fire. Among them was Kimmy, her face smudged with soot but otherwise unharmed. She rushed to Sarah, helping her dismount and taking Jacob while Sarah's stiff limbs adjusted to standing again. "They came for you," Kimmy said bluntly, her voice tight with anger. "Tabe told Chief Nakoa that if he gave you and Jacob to them, they would leave in peace. When Chief refused, they attacked." Sarah looked at the chief, who was now conferring with the few warriors who had made it to the meeting place. "He risked everyone for us? Why?" Kimmy's expression softened slightly. "Not just for you. Chief Nakoa knows Tabe's word means nothing. Give one captive, he demands another, then another. Today stand firm, or tomorrow bend until breaking." She bounced Jacob gently in her arms. "And Chief sees his lost family in you and boy. This gives him strength to fight." As the day wore on, more survivors trickled into the cave, women, children, and a few warriors, many bearing injuries. By nightfall, it became clear that their numbers were greatly diminished. The winter camp was lost, along with most of their food stores and many horses. Worse, several tribe members were unaccounted for, including 3 children. Chief Nakoa's face was grim as he addressed the gathered survivors. Through Kimmy's translation, Sarah learned that they would travel north to join another band of Comanche, led by Nakoa's brother. But first, they would track the Kiowa and attempt to rescue any captives. "He asks if you still have knife," Kimmy whispered to Sarah. "Says you may need it in days ahead." Sarah felt for the bone handle still hidden in her dress. "Yes, tell him I'm ready to fight if I must." Her gaze fell on Jacob, now sleeping peacefully despite the dire circumstances. "For my son, I'll do whatever is necessary." That night, as the exhausted survivors slept in shifts, Sarah found herself sitting beside Chief Nakoa at the mouth of the cave, both of them keeping watch over the moonlit plains below. His shoulder had been properly bandaged by one of the older women, but Sarah could tell from his stiff posture that he was in considerable pain. "Thank you," she said simply, knowing he would understand all she meant by those 2 words. The chief nodded once, his eyes never leaving the horizon. "Tabe will hunt us," he said after a long silence. "Hunt you? Why? What makes us so valuable to him?" "White woman with blue eyes, yellow hair, rare. Mexican haciendas pay many horses, much gold." He glanced at her. "Child, too. Mexican families buy white children, raise as own." The thought of Jacob being sold away from her, raised by strangers in a foreign land, sent ice through Sarah's veins. "I won't let that happen," she vowed, her hand instinctively moving to the knife at her waist. Chief Nakoa studied her with newfound respect. "You have warrior heart now," he observed. "Not same woman who came to camp crying." It was true, Sarah realized. The woman who had been captured from the homestead, grief-stricken, terrified, helpless, was gone. In her place stood someone harder, someone who had learned to survive in a world where mercy was rare and strength was everything. "The people have taught me," she acknowledged. "You have taught me." For a brief moment, something like tenderness flickered in the chief's eyes. Then he turned back to the vigilant watch, his voice low but firm. "Tomorrow we hunt Kiowa, find stolen children, then go north to my brother's camp." He paused, then added, "You and Jacob come with us. Become truly people now." It wasn't a question but a statement, an offering of belonging that Sarah had never expected to receive. As the moon climbed higher in the winter sky, she sat in silence beside the Comanche chief, their shared watch a silent pact to protect what remained of their broken tribe. The pale light of dawn revealed the small band of survivors preparing for the day's journey. Women packed what few supplies remained while warriors checked weapons and tended to horses. Sarah, who had slept fitfully with Jacob nestled against her, joined Kimmy in distributing the last of their dried meat among the children. "Eat," Sarah encouraged a small girl no more than 4 years old, whose mother had not survived the raid. The child had not spoken since being found wandering the outskirts of the destroyed camp, her eyes vacant with shock. "You need strength for the journey." Chief Nakoa approached, his injured shoulder now held at a stiff angle that betrayed his pain despite his stoic expression. "We leave soon," he announced. Scouts found Kiowa Trail. They moved slow with captives and stolen horses. "How many of our people did they take?" Sarah asked, adjusting Jacob on her hip. "3 children, 2 young women." His jaw tightened. "1 elder." Sarah thought of the kind-faced old man who had carved Jacob's wooden horse, who had taught her how to identify medicinal plants during the autumn migration. "Whitebird?" she asked, using the Comanche name she had learned. The chief nodded grimly. "They take him for his knowledge of southern territories, force him to guide them. Will we catch them?" The question came from Kimmy, who had been listening silently. "Yes." There was deadly certainty in Chief Nakoa's voice. "Today, before sunset," he turned to Sarah, "you stay with women and children when we attack. Protect them if Kiowa circle back." Sarah straightened, meeting his gaze directly. "I can help. I'm a good shot with a rifle." Surprise flickered across the chief's face. "You know rifle?" "My husband taught me. We lived on the frontier. I had to know how to defend our homestead when he was away." The memory of Thomas showing her how to load and aim his hunting rifle brought a brief pang of grief, quickly pushed aside. "If you have a spare weapon, I can use it." Chief Nakoa considered her for a long moment, then nodded. "You ride with Kimi. Stay back but be ready if needed." Within the hour they were moving across the winter plains, following the clear trail left by the Kiowa party. The Comanche moved with practiced stealth, using the terrain to mask their approach. By mid-afternoon, scouts returned reporting that they had located the Kiowa camp in a sheltered ravine just ahead. Chief Nakoa gathered his warriors, only 8 men, plus Sarah and 3 other women who had insisted on joining the rescue party. The rest remained behind with the children in a well-hidden copse of trees. Jacob clung to Sarah as she prepared to leave him in the care of an older woman named Taza. "Be good, my brave boy," she whispered, kissing his forehead. "Mama will return soon." "He will be safe," Taza promised in halting English. "Go bring our children home." Sarah mounted behind Kimi, the unfamiliar weight of a rifle across her back. Chief Nakoa outlined his plan, simple but relying on the element of surprise. The Kiowa, confident in their victory and the distance they had put between themselves and any surviving Comanche, had grown careless in their security. As they approached the ravine, Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. Chief Nakoa split their small force into 2 groups that would attack from different directions, creating the illusion of a larger rescue party. Sarah and Kimi positioned themselves on a ridge overlooking the camp, where they could provide covering fire if needed. From their vantage point, Sarah could see the captives, the children tied together near a central fire, the young women working under guard, and Whitebird, the elderly man, sitting apart, his hands bound but his back straight with dignity even in captivity. "There," Kimi whispered, pointing to a figure moving among the Kiowa warriors. "Ta Bay." Sarah recognized the scarred face of the Kiowa leader as he inspected a string of Comanche horses. Her fingers tightened on the rifle. This was the man who had destroyed their camp, who had intended to sell her and Jacob to Mexican haciendas.